Kia ora. Hello, I'm Philip Duncan. Thank you for joining us for our Tuesday update, recorded on the 15th of April. Well, we've got an unofficial tropical cyclone north of New Zealand. The Joint Typhoon Warning Centre, they track tropical storms all around the planet. They are not the official provider for our part of the world, but they've detected that this has now reached tropical cyclone status. So it's up to the Fiji Met Service to name it. They're suggesting that might happen later on today, but it's short-lived. The reason why I've been saying for a week that this system is borderline for being a cyclone is because at the same time that it's deepening, it's also leaving the tropics. You don't normally get tropical cyclones named south of New Caledonia. This will be right about parallel to it when it is likely to be potentially named by the Fiji Met Service. Someone yesterday on YouTube suggested to me that she wanted to get a chocolate Easter egg if this formed into a cyclone, but my response was it's a 50-50 call because it is right on that borderline. So we may be seeing that storm deepening a wee bit, but then it will change and morph into an entirely new low pressure zone around the New Zealand area. So this is not like Cyclone Gabrielle, but it is still going to produce severe weather across both of the main islands. Here is the latest tracking when we recorded this. So you see here around about east of Noumea, Category 1, short-lived. By the time it's sort of 24 hours or so after that, it's then likely to no longer be a tropical storm. We've got official warnings and watches from the Met Service already. This map is likely to get a lot bigger over the next 24 hours. This is how it looked when we recorded this around about lunchtime on Tuesday. So go to the Met Service website or Weather Watch to get the very latest. All right, let's break it down. We'll kick off, we're going to cover rain, wind, and then waves, and then we'll just get into the usual forecast for you, but we'll break it down into these pieces to start with. Here is rain. 7-day rainfall departure from normal, courtesy of resupply.co.nz. So a lot of blue on the map now. We talked the other day about the sort of fine line between heavy rain and not. That has certainly moved further out into the Tasman. So New Zealand is much more affected now. But notice the heavy stuff in the blue here, the darker blue. So it faces to the tropics. That's the top of both of the main islands. Whereas southern parts of both of the main islands may actually be leaning drier than average. So once again, our mountains and ranges block up the rainfall, making it heavy for some, much drier for others. And as those winds move around, the rain slips through other areas and stops for other people. So it's messy as we see the system coming through, but top of the south and top half of the North Island certainly most exposed. Here's the 7-day rainfall. This is from the European modelling. This is an animation, so let's show it now. You can see the tropical storm dropping southwards, turns into a new system out in the Tasman Sea, and then that sees more rain coming down from the tropics, blocked out to the east by high pressure. That's why you see all this pale blue and green, bottom of the scale there, out to the east under high pressure. This is where you've got that very heavy tropical stream of rain coming down. East Cape area could be seeing 300 millimetres or more. Parts of Bay of Plenty might get that. And around Northland, even Auckland and Coromandel, especially the Coromandel side, could be seeing 150 to 200 millimetres. So this is some pretty heavy rain coming through. The other area of concern, the top of the South Island, Nelson, over to the western side, in fact, including Farewell Spit, all of that heavy rain in there around Golden Bay, Tasman, seeing maybe 200, even 300 millimetres in some areas. Keep up to date with the Met Service, those numbers might still change. This is the American modelling, it's almost identical, not an animation, just showing you the same amount of rain, taking us right through till Easter Monday. So once again, top of the North Island, especially leaning to the northeast, and in the South Island, leaning to the northwest. Some heavy rain down the west coast as well. Eastern areas and southern parts of the North Island are not seeing the same amount of rainfall. Next part of this is wind. So we've got two bursts of wind. The squash zone, which is coming through first, that's the main risk part, and then we've got the low itself. Now the low is going to fall apart. That's what makes it different to Gabrielle. Gabrielle was very windy at the centre. This storm, while it's windy at the centre at the moment, it's going to fan out as it moves into New Zealand. So here is the setup at the moment, bit of a brisk southeasterly at the top of New Zealand and through Cook Strait and along some of the hills here. Let's animate this, it's kind of fast, but you'll see the storm coming through here as we go through Thursday, the worst of the winds. And then the low itself is out here with another area of wind, which basically melts, falls apart out over the Tasman Sea. So that squash zone, which is caused by the big high out to the east and the low pressure moving in against it, that's the worst weather. And this is it here, peak gusts, on Thursday morning. It could start very early in the morning, even Wednesday night at the top of New Zealand. And then this will go through Thursday, tracking down over the island. Strong, very strong winds along the Kaimai Ranges, eastern Waikato, Hauraki Plains, Auckland, certainly around Northland, Great Barrier Island, all around the Coromandel, as I mentioned, and also parts of Bay of Plenty. Even further down around National Park, you're getting some pretty strong winds through there. So with the wind and the low pressure, we get some pretty big waves coming through for this as well. So we've got dangerous wave conditions coming in around New Zealand. Great shot there of Mount Maunganui. Let's have a look and see what goes on. So this is from noon tomorrow, Wednesday, through until the early hours of Friday. Fairly quick animation from predictwind.com. Here's the big stuff coming through here in the darker shading and the pink shading. Very big waves, 4, 5, 6, 7 meters, maybe even 8 and 9 meter waves here and there. And we end on Friday morning, still some pretty large waves of 5 meters coming through to places like Bay of Plenty and East Cape. So the peak of the winds, just like the peak of the wind and the rain, pretty much is on Thursday. Very big waves coming through the eastern side of Northland, Great Barrier. Some of that will come into the Auckland area and then along Coromandel and into the Bay of Plenty. You can find more of those maps on our website or simply go to predictwind.com. So let's get into the actual forecast. Here we are tonight. It was an unofficial tropical cyclone when we recorded this. It might technically be a named one thanks to the Fiji Met Service by 6 o'clock tonight. We'll just have to wait and see. Then it runs down here into this sort of low pressure area, and that's going to stretch the middle of the low out. That's another reason why it's likely to lose that cyclone status. Messy kind of conditions in the New Zealand zone, high pressure down to the south. That's why we've got this large easterly flow ahead of this storm moving through. So by lunchtime Wednesday, the low is dropping well out of the tropical area. It's next to Norfolk Island, so it's quite likely to be losing its cyclone status by that point. And it's still not 100% locked in, but that's why we call these things marginal. From a weather forecasting point of view, this is the tropical cyclone status of it is kind of irrelevant, because even if it does technically get Cat 1, it changes so fast into this new system that's not really a problem so much for New Zealand, but it does give it maybe a little bit more energy as it comes on in. So lots of wind, and by the time we get to lunchtime, you can see some rainfall in Northland here, building up to the 40 or 50 millimetre mark. Elsewhere, northeasterly winds blowing through, right down even towards Otago, where they might turn a bit more northerly. A few light showers in the east, nothing much. Thursday's the main day, so very strong winds, as we just showed you, coming through north to northeasterlies, mostly northeast, which is a very strong direction for a number of regions. Heaviest rain, once again, is up here in Northland, shows 24 hours of rainfall coming on through there, so 60 millimetres. But keep in mind, there could be some thunderstorms or heavy falls inside that rain, which could boost the totals up even further on a local basis. Good Friday. Now we may start to see those winds easing at the top of New Zealand once they turn a bit more northerly. Not usually as windy, certainly not around Auckland and Waikato once that northerly kicks in. Could still be a bit windy around eastern Waikato to begin with until those winds turn northerly. All the heavy rain coming into Coromandel Peninsula, Bay of Plenty, East Cape, and coming in towards Nelson, as the low out here, quite large, and that's got another burst of windy weather, but that is offshore for the most part. So again, not like Gabrielle, which the worst of the winds are at the centre, and that was what hurt so many parts of the country with wind damage. Now by noon Saturday, the big high out to the east could be a problem. It could expand and push back against this. Now that, for the most part, doesn't cause too many problems, except for the rainfall, this tropical rain still coming down on Saturday and being blocked from moving away from us. So you've got that set of rain from the tropics, and then you've got another set of rain from the low itself, locally spinning around here and driving in to that northwest corner, west of Nelson, and seeing some big rainfall in these areas, maybe getting 100 millimetres or so just there in one day. Now we go to Easter Sunday. Here is that massive high ballooning out to the tropics, ballooning back into the North Island. So as this high expands out, it slows that rain down and it keeps it coming down from the tropics into that northeast corner. Yesterday's map showed some of that rain perhaps clearing a wee bit to the east. So that's why the high is going to impact incoming rain. One of the reasons I think we're seeing such big rainfall is mostly due to high pressure. The low falls apart further on Sunday, but again, that rain in the northwest corner. It's quite a prolonged rain event for an area that doesn't normally see rain like that. And then you see it all down the west coast. Fairly normal for the west coast rainfall totals. But if you're traveling there, if you're camping this long weekend, definitely stay up to date with those warnings because rivers may start to flood. Eastern areas, not so bad in the South Island. We get to noon Monday. See what I mean? The high is still in the same place, still stretching to the tropics and feeding this tropical rain down. Now that, if the high shrinks a bit, that rain will slide out to sea. So a fine line between that heavy rain and fairly dry stuff and the top of the country, showers falling apart. The winds are much lighter as we go through Monday, but still heavy rain on the west coast, and some of it might even come over into Otago and South Canterbury, although we don't expect it to be a huge amount at this stage. And we go to Tuesday of next week, and the high has actually pushed back even further, and that changes the airflow back to a northeasterly, and that rain sits there. So that rain at the top of the North Island may still move around a wee bit. Plenty of dry areas though once we get through to Tuesday, and yes, another system out here in the Tasman Sea, more tropical lows to the north. So we may not yet be done with some of this wet weather fixing the droughts and the dry that we've still got around New Zealand. For all the warnings, plenty of warnings from the police, from Met Service, Weather Watch, whoever it is. You can get it all from Alert Info. Just go to alert.info and you can get all of those alerts sent through to you. Fantastic site. They're a big supporter of us and they provide a unique service in New Zealand. And also, don't forget to check out the Met Service because obviously they're going to be having warnings out over the next day or two and they're the official warnings provider. So there it is, Tropical Cyclone up here, not officially named when we recorded this. Short-lived as it moves south, turns into a big new system in the Tasman Sea, a number of moving parts. Don't be surprised if your forecasts chop and change. I think some surprises are likely. We always get that. It's due to our mountains and ranges that breaks that airflow right up. That is all from me for today. We'll see you again tomorrow, Wednesday, with our next update.